Hi friends, strangers, internet. Oh, I have wig hair all over my face, and it's just what it is. Also, my name is Emily, or M, of Imperfectly M. I love colorful makeup. I also love colorful language. This is not going to be the first video that you're going to see after a break, but it's the first thing I'm filming. So my typical awkwardness is at about 1 million versus 900,000. If you haven't been here before, I love colorful makeup. I love nerding out about makeup. I love talking about things that make me happy and things that don't maybe make me happy. I am neurodivergent. I'm autistic. I love talking about all kinds of random ass shit. But really, makeup is my main focus. But you know, I don't know. I'm just giving you a little bit of a rundown. I'm back with another custom palette video. So here's the thing is, a lot of times these kind of duping the vibes videos, I am directly inspired by a release where I am playing in my abundant single eyeshadow collection to create, sometimes I'm trying to directly dupe a palette so that I can see if it's actually a color story that I want to work with once I've built it. A lot of times what ends up happening is that I build the color story and then I'm looking at it and I'm like, no, I want to edit this. I want to change that. I want to do this. I want to do that. So, you know, it's just the concept of like, I have a lot of individual pan single eyeshadows from a variety of brands that I love and adore. I don't love and adore them all equally, but you get what I'm saying. And I actually don't feel as much inspiration by pre-built palettes. So that's kind of where this stems from. In case you're new here at the new year, I thought I would go through the whole spiel. So this palette is inspired by some of the trends I've been seeing within the market for a while now. And that is this whole pink, purple, blue color story. I saw that with the glamlite Scooby-Doo release, with the glaminatrix glamorous palette. I feel like there were other palettes. I felt like this fed right into my part of it scratched all the right parts of my brain because I'm a color theory nerd. And I love analogous color stories. And so many of these palettes I kept seeing were that kind of color story. Analogous means if you have the color wheel, you're picking 3, usually I think it was 3, but you could do 4, or I guess 2, colors that are all in the same little wedge. You slice the color wheel like a pizza or a cake and you just grab that wedge. That's an analogous color story. And those colors tend to work together really well because they're neighbors. They're next to each other. So when I saw these kind of color stories hit the market, I was actually like, oh, I'm into that. That's really cool. I think that that's a really fun way to do interesting color stories that still work really well. I felt like most of the ones that I saw were pretty well done and they were tempting to me, but I realized like I have formulas and finishes that I already fucking love. So I built this palette. I definitely tormented over this palette for a long time because like I have been partial to this new to me Terra Moon's palette, this empty palette, because it's just gorgeous. It's a 20 pan palette, which I haven't really had a 20 pan palette before. And I was like, am I being repetitive? Am I being like, the thing is that I really love this. This to me has been so much fun to play with, but it also is like weirdly safe. And I say it's safe because there's a lot of like soft jumps. Like blending these two turquoises together is easy. Blending these different pinks or the pinks and the purples. Like I have enough like tonal variation with the mattes. I love the lethal formula, and lethal mattes are what I have in this entire palette, except for one color, but they blend out really beautifully. So like I could have edited this down a little different, taken out some of the shades, maybe not stuck myself to this specific layout that I visually fell in love with, and it would still be a very functional palette. But after a while I was like, you know what, it's okay. Not every palette needs to be edited so tightly and perfectly. So I ended up keeping with this size. We have a row of iridescents, we have a row of basically pastel brights, we have a row of multichromes, and we have a row of brighter and deeper shades. Like I said, it's just an easy palette to work with. So I'm going to swatch everything. I know the last time I did this video, I did the swatches holding up the palette and we had some casualties. So I'm gonna keep trying with my overhead filming setup. So we're gonna go in, I'm gonna swatch everything by color group. I'm gonna give you all of the shadow names. I also have some kind of like runner-up shadows that we will talk about that ended up getting swapped out over time, and we'll jump into it. I'm going to have a second video that is going to be the lookbook. I have anywhere between, I have over 7 looks. I have at least a week's worth of looks. It might be more. We're gonna see. But I did that last time. I had the palette building video, or the palette video, and the lookbook, and I really enjoyed that format, and it seems like y'all did. So hopefully you will stick around and watch the rest of the video. But before we jump into the juicy swatches, if you like colorful makeup, if you like bitches with lots of opinions, or maybe you just love cute fab babes, as you should go and subscribe. Let's finally get into this palette of mine. So I'm just going to show you a couple of the runner-ups and the kind of versatility of this concept. This concept meaning having an iridescent row, a kind of like lighter blend out matte, a row of multichromes, and then a row of deep shadows, or brighter, deeper shadows. I think at one point in time I had Light Speed from Terra Moons in as like one of my pink iridescent choices. And then I know I had Cream Puff Cuddles in, I think, for the pink, for this row of pink shadows. Now that I'm looking at this, wait. This actually makes a lot more sense because we have pink, pink purple, purple, blue, turquoise. So anyway, I think at one point in time I had Light Speed in this row. I think the pink row is the row that changed the most. I had Cream Puff Cuddles from Devinah. I also had Cookie Dough from Looksy as an option. And I can't remember. I think I toyed with using a different turquoise. Like this is Half Tide. No, this is Half Moon from Terra Moons. The concept kind of stays the same no matter what. I just ended up, all of this row is Terra Moon, and then this is a mix of, I think, Terra Moon and Devinah in terms of the iridescence. I just ended up preferring what I picked, but if you see some playing in the lookbook, that was kind of the process. I do like these shades. They're just not my, like, favorite. I will say Light Speed is spectacular, but if you're less of a single eyeshadow lover or maximalist that I can be, I feel like Light Speed and Euphoria might not be necessary to own both. But yeah, those are some of the runners up. Nothing wrong with any of them, but in the end, I am very happy with where I ended up, but I didn't want to skimp out on some sparkle swatches. So let's start with the turquoise row, because a couple of things, as I was putting together this palette, I did not want to use any of the shadows that I used in my retro rose palette. So I was very purposeful in that way, but I really wanted to spotlight the Cosmos and also Starburst from Terra Moons. And this kind of stemmed from the Cosmic Wonder palette that Terra Moons recently released, because I feel like some of the initial marketing I heard about that palette was kind of inspired by the Cosmos and all the colors in it. As a multichrome lover and somebody who's always trying to, I find working with multichromes very easy, and I feel like they intimidate some people, so I always want to change that narrative. The turquoise row is up first. So we have a very beloved shade in my collection. This is Space Baby. This is from the Iridescent Chameleon line in Terra Moons. I love it so much. It is a turquoise, blue, purple, even to pink iridescent shadow. Some of the iridescent chameleons from Terra Moons have a very thin texture that for me, even me, somebody who has used colors like Space Baby and Zero Gravity for years now, I still sometimes underestimate how impactful it is. Just because I tend to gravitate towards the chunky textural shadows that I love. I also felt like, you can use Space Baby with any other row in this palette. Easy peasy. And you can use it as a face highlighter if you're a bold bitch like me. I've used all of these as face highlighters. I love them all as face highlighters. The first matte is Proxy from Lethal, and it's from the Lethal After Dark palette, but most of Lethal singles are available. I also picked up probably far too much. This is just a really good, turquoise that I find I can pastel out. I can really go in and go in with a sheer, I guess, I don't know if y'all would consider that pastel, but I can blow this out and make it more of a pastel, or I can pair it with other shades. Now, the Cosmos. I have been in a full love affair with this shadow. From the moment I initially saw this shadow to getting it into my hands and working with it, this is a shadow that looks turquoise, light blue, but it flashes yellow, green, pink, and you can definitely lay it down in a thick swatch or a thick eye application, but you can also really spread it out as this sparkly multichrome topper. And I feel like that's you'll start, in my opinion, seeing the pinky purple of it all that much more. It is truly one of my favorite shades already in my collection. And this kind of colorful multichrome, this is what I want in my life. I feel like most of this row is an example of this is exactly this is my makeup heaven. This is my makeup heaven. This is heaven in a fingertip, okay? I don't want to say I was afraid, but I am not traditionally a lover of turquoise. So with the Cosmos, I always was a little worried that I would yearn after it and then not end up using it as much, but oh baby, that's not a problem. That's not a problem at all. Now, last up in the turquoise row is petrichor, my beloved petrichor. This color from Lethal Cosmetics is it's just so beautiful. I think the reason why I sat on this palette for so long, besides the fact that that's just what I do, is that petrichor has a way, and I personally find this true with a lot of lethal shadows. There's a way to it where I can make it softer, but I can also build it up to a more jewel toned, intensity. So for the longest time, I felt like this palette was repetitive. That was my biggest struggle with this palette. I felt like it was repetitive because do I need both of these mattes? No. I think I could probably get rid of this one and just keep these pinks, or and then mix this. I could probably just go with one of these turquoise, but ease and comfort was the name of the game with this color story. And I think that's one of the really nice things about palette building. I don't always want kind of oversized, repetitive, pre-built, glued-in palettes. But for single eyeshadow built palettes, that kind of comfort and ease is quite nice. Let's talk blues. I've said this about turquoise. Turquoise and blue, they are not my favorite eyeshadow colors. But because purple has blue in it, I find that turquoise and blue, when I pair them up with purple and pink, I'm a lot more excited by them. And this row or this column is no different. As I said initially, I started out with cookie dough as my iridescent, and I could happily keep cookie dough in this spot, but I ended up picking Cake Bomb from Devinah. This is from the Devinah. I think it's the sugar. Oh God, what are they? But it's their sugar. It's their very first super sparkly iridescent line.
It's the Sugar Drops collection.
It's just a stunning, sparkly blue but it's one of the few in this line from Devinah that doesn't have a very super obvious shift. Although I'm a liar, because I do think that it gives you turquoise to blue purple. So yeah, I'm a liar. My brain made it up as all blue, but it really gives you turquoise to blue purple. And the really nice thing about this is that because I feel like it really screams blue, the multichrome I paired with this row is less blue because, like I said, I'm not a blue lover. But I can get it to a more sparkly blue by putting this on top of the shimmer or on top of any of the mattes. This is Surge from Lethal Cosmetics. This looks so much less bright in the camera, but this is such a beautiful blue. And it's bright. It's like the ocean. It's like 80s arcade. That swatch looked terrible. But again, it can be sheared out. It's a great pairing shade. It's also just great on its own. The multichrome is Moontide from Terra Moons. And this is remarkably purple when you swatch it. But I'm telling y'all, this has this blue purple kind of base to it, and it's one of those shadows that swatches forever. Grab some of the Cake Balm, and I feel like when you layer it on top of Moontide, and it probably still reads very purple, but you'll see in the lookbook, I have done looks where I used basically this whole row, and I got a beautiful blurple look, I will say. But also because this Moontide has the purple in it, and it has this turquoise reflect, it also works with everything. Now, this last matte in this shade, this is from the Lethal is Dead release, Theresa's first collab with Lethal Cosmetics. This is Predator. There are some dark blues within the Lethal line. I still feel like Predator, from what I have compared, has the most like depth and vibrancy, so I'm using it. There are definitely other dark blue mattes out there. That's my blue row. And yes, it's a blue purple row. You can ring the shame bell and tell me that this is a blue purple row. I don't care, because it has satisfied my blue desires in a way that, look, it's gotten me excited about blue. And that is fucking progress, okay? Moontide. Oh, you bitch. Y'all, this purple row, I almost slept on Zero Gravity. For a moment, for a little bit, I did. I came back to it with no regrets. Now, I do have some beautiful purple iridescent shadows. I have Puffles from Devinah, and I have other ones too. And I kept Zero Gravity out of the palette for a little while because it gets its fucking love, okay? But the intensity of purple that this shadow brings is just beyond comprehension. Like I was talking about Space Baby, there is a thinness to this shadow, and I will say I find that I get something to the effect of hard panning from some of my Terra Moon's iridescence. I had it happen with Red Giant. That one was a kind of disappointing shade for me personally, especially when I compared it to Cleona Ray. And I've had it happen with a Zero Gravity and Space Baby. But Zero Gravity and Space Baby still, like, they still show the fuck up. When I've swatched them or even picked them up on the brush, I sometimes question. I'm like, wait, are you there? And then it's like, oh no, you're fucking there. It's so good. It's such a spectacular shade. The next color is Wisteria. This is from the Lethal Nightflower palette, but again, they sell everything as singles. But y'all, if you're a purple bitch, the Lethal Cosmetics Nightflower palette is a purple palette. It's actually purple. It has depth. It has dimension. It also goes into the blue and even a little peach. You might be hearing Bruce Lee, the building cat, stray cat, building cat, but he is doing his thing outside. Kids, cats, I got all the noises. Wisteria is one of those purple shades that I was missing in my Lethal matte collection, because they do muted shades well, they do grungy, but I love this kind of purple. It's warm, but it's not as pink as these tones. It's just easy to work with. I'm not a huge fan of really cool tone purples myself personally. I'll just do a little comparison. These both read, in my opinion, more like orchid, whereas this is more purple. Lavender, I don't know. Grapey. I fucking love Wisteria. Wisteria is brilliant. So the purple in this row, the multichrome, is Chasing Comets. This is the multichrome, but this is just like, this is purple bitches. This is the shit. I mean, Chasing Comets, Moontide. I have to say, Terra Moons makes a lot of really spectacular purples. This one has your purple, grapey, pink base to it, but then it has these like flashes of yellow, and I always want to say it's like taupey, but I think it's because it reads almost more blue. It's such a pretty shadow. It's very bright. You can use it on its own. You could really blow it out. It's not as like It can definitely do a bit of a topper thing, but it doesn't have the same kind of texture that I would say the Cosmos and Starburst have. But this is just, and yet again, because it has those flashes, those pinky, shifts, and like a little bit of blue, I feel like in this base, it can really work, especially with the pink side, I would say. The last shade in the purple row is the shade, this shade is Plutonium, and this is from Theresa is Lethal, the most recent Theresa is Dead and Lethal Cosmetics collab. And this bitch is just, this is the deep purple in my opinion. And yet again, like I said with Predator, Lethal does have some deeper purples in their line, but I do feel like this one so far feels like it's gotten the most depth. It's definitely a little bit more cool toned, but because purple is made up of blue and pink, I feel like you can manipulate purple sometimes to some effect. Plutonium is really just a beautiful color. That bitch is dark and smoky and it's the depth that I needed. So here's the other thing with this kind of palette. I always feel like I can get my brights, I can get my pastels, I can get my iridescence. As I have gotten more and more comfortable and playing in makeup, I've really started embracing and playing with depth. I don't know if anyone else has noticed it or whatever, but like that's a thing for me. So now as I'm like playing in color and things, I always want to keep that in mind. And that was why this bottom row is so important to me in this palette. Not only do I have a lot of brightness in it, but I have depth, especially with Plutonium and with Predator. I find that like turquoise, blue, and purple is a color family that just screams deepening shades to me. I think the things that scare people away from blues and purples and that they can go bruisish on your skin depending on the tone and the how the product performs and all of that. I think there's something about that makes them a good deepening color family. I know that might sound weird or controversial or whatever. I will always say, oh my God. Okay, this is a tangent while I clean up my swatches. In the era of the pastel palette, when everybody was releasing pastel palettes, my biggest complaint, my biggest issue was that all of these brands were just throwing a black or a gray in a pastel palette. Y'all, if you are deepening pastels, grab yourself a navy, a purple, a turquoise. Those tones are going to add depth and blend into pastels and brights so much easier. I don't know, there's something about the bottom row. I'm proud of this palette. We'll just say that. Now we have this bridge kind of row of like pink to purple. I love pink and I love purple, so I'm not surprised that I kind of went a little overboard. It's also because this highlight shade, this star shade, Starburst, I felt like it just deserved its own row. And I got to also show off a new adoration, Euphoria. Bitch, Euphoria! So this is from Terra Moons. From my angle, I'm getting this like hot peach to pinky purple shift, but on camera, you're getting like a cool purple. It does the thing that zero gravity does, where it freaks out the camera. It just absolutely freaks out the camera. It like gets really like neon UV, but because it's more of like a multichrome, you can really use it with like the pinks, the purples. I have worn it as a face highlighter so many times. Euphoria is I don't remember who recommended it or why it got on my list for Terra Moons, but holy fuck. And even like, yeah, there's that cool tone purple in it that like almost goes blue. It's just, oh, I love it. I love it so much. This is Crossroads from Lethal, which I cannot help but think of Britney and Crossroads and that movie. with this name. She looks pink, but she really is, I guess this row would be the orchid row. It all happened because of Starburst. This was yet again an unexpectedly good purchase for me. It's from Terra Moons, and this is flaky, shiny, shifty. It is purple. It's peach. It's gold. It looks so like gold on camera right now. I guess like peachy gold, but it's a purple shifting shade, and it really like, you can use it as a topper. You can use it very sheerly or like more intensely. You can use it in a much more like solid opaque application, especially over a base. Bitch, I feel like Starburst and Euphoria are like sisters or something, or like mother-daughter. Like, there's something, like, they look very different, but there's a similarity to them that is just, I love them both so much. I love this kind of texture. So this one is definitely flaky and sparkly, but it's a little less. The Cosmos is flaky, but also like very wet feeling. This one feels a little drier, but not so dry that it's gonna like fluff out of the pan. I was not expecting to love this shade so much, but I'll fucking do. It's so good. Dahlia, which is another shade from the Lethal Nightflower palette. This is your more intense orchid shade, and like I spoke previously, I don't need both of these. I probably could have skipped Crossroads, but as I talked about earlier, the comfort, the ease of blending these two together to build a look is just too good not to use. When I knew I wanted to include Starburst, I thought it might be like the purple, like it might be a purple in like the iridescent placement in the palette, but I ended up making this orchid row, and I feel like it just brings me so much joy. Not only does it make building like a pink to purple look even easier, it's very much its own standalone look. All of these shades actually are really loves of mine, and I think yet again I was shocked at how much joy this little grouping brought me. So the last row up is our pink row. This one definitely, I feel like, went through the most evolution. This one was a bit of a struggle, but I am very happy as where we landed. So I did end up picking out Puffles, which is a pinky purple iridescent from Devinah. Yet again, it's from their is it Sugar Exploders? I know Candy Exploders was a different line. Anyway, beautiful, very flaky, very sparkly, shifty, iridescent. It gives me pink, purple. It goes to blue. It's just a really pretty shade that I felt like brought out pink, but again, like so many of these, it kind of ties with the whole color story. The one non-lethal matte that I picked out is from Menagerie. It's from the Pastel Pub palette, and it's the shade Cuddle. Menagerie was doing singles, but they have stopped doing that except for multichromes, I believe. I'm sure there are plenty of pastel pinks out there in terms of singles. I just, no, it's still, I feel like a lot of the pinks that I have are either very bright, or I have some that are more muted and almost like dusty, less true to pink. This one definitely takes some building, but it's still just a really good pink. Now this is the unexpected addition. This is terrestrial. Terrestrial. I keep wanting to say terrestrial, but terrestrial. This is also from Terra Moons. So at first I didn't think about it because I thought it was more of a peachy shade, and it definitely has peach to it, but it also has pink and purple in it. And I ended up just really, I don't feel like, and it's one of those shades that just keeps going. It's more in the texture of like Moontide and Cosmic Dancer, but it has the like flakiness and shine of, you know, a good shade would have. Yeah, it looks so peach rose gold on camera, but it definitely goes into the different zones of color, and Puffles on top of it gets really pink. Like, look at my, it still looks peachy. I love multichromes. I love multichromes because if I wanted to really stick in more of like a warm pinky peach look, I would probably end up doing even Euphoria, Cuddle, and Terrestrial. And like, I think that you would get that warmer tone rather than a cooler pink. It's just a really spectacular color. It actually was so much more interesting in the palette than something like the Cream Puff Cuddles, which is nice, but it feels limiting. And that's my thing, is that like multichromes open up my universe. I love this color. I had barely, like, I'm still very much learning all my Terra Moon shades, and I'm so glad that I ended up adding this because it was such an unexpectedly good addition. The last shade up is Caps Lock from Lethal. This is from the After Dark palette. This pink is spectacular. This pink is spectacular. This pink is spectacular. I will keep saying it. It's just so bright. It's so juicy. It is cool toned, but not too cool toned. Wow, my brain just broke. It can work with purples. It can work with other pinks. It is just such a good formula. That's my refrigerator going off, like doing its thing, and I'm almost done, so I'm just gonna let it be. But it can definitely be sheared out. So yet again, I keep saying this, not every shade in this palette is like an absolute need, but I'm very happy with the decisions that I made. I just think this is such a pretty little grouping. I love a quad. And I feel like it makes life so easy. I feel like the quad format just makes life so easy. It makes it so easy to decide what eyeshadow to pull from. Here's the thing. This is what I'm trying to like kind of touch on. I didn't initially make this palette thinking, oh, I could go diagonal. I could pick 4 at random, like 1 from each row. Like, I didn't quite plan it that way. But the thing that I realized is that when you work within this like analogous color story where they're all neighbors, it works that way. It's gonna look good together because they are so close on that color wheel. You can do the same thing with like yellow, orange, red. I think that like yellow, green, blue is another good one. It works that way. Little chunks of analogous colors really work well. And I think especially with makeup, this like zone of the color wheel works so well. So many of these shadows have bits of other colors in them. That is why I can pick 4 colors at random and they're probably gonna look good together. The reason why I also like talking about kind of like analogous color stories and playing in your colors is that if you feel intimidated or less excited about certain colors, but they're neighbor colors you like, put them together. I like blue a lot more when it's with purple, or even I like turquoise a lot more when it's with pink, even though they're not neighbors, they're close. The point is that there are all these different ways you can play with color. I feel like a lot of the videos that I make are for people that like color, but maybe still get overwhelmed by it. They still get intimidated by it. I am here to remind you that like you can make your color work for you. Being overwhelmed by color or being overwhelmed by makeup in general, especially if you are somebody that struggles with mental health stuff, feeling overwhelmed and just wanting to to find joy in what you're doing is so valid. It's so real. And I feel like if it's something like this, where you're just not sure how to pair things, or you feel intimidated by certain colors, if you really start thinking about what they are made of, like for me, really knowing that purple is made up of blue and pink has helped me so much. And knowing that some purples have more pink in them and some purples have more blue, and so they're going to work better depending on that information. That shit is helpful for me and my brain. I know that some of that is like information that I have known for a long time because of my art classes, like my elementary, middle, high school love of art. I think it's never too late to find that out and use that information. And you might not perceive makeup in that way, and you might not find it exciting in that way, and that's okay too. But this is the kind of stuff that's kept me so excited about makeup for so long. I really wish I could be a consistent person when I swatch, meaning keep the same shape and length and angle, but I'm just not. On the upside, I did fit them all on this arm, which was the point. There she is in all her glory. Let me know your thoughts on this palette. Definitely let me know your favorites or any insight that this might have brought to your eyes. Let's go to outro me. So I hope you enjoyed everything. If you have any questions about anything I talked about, if you want any more clarification, I don't know if there's color theory tangents that I went down on, just let's talk in the comments. I am always happy to answer questions. If you have any suggestions, kind suggestions about this kind of format, definitely let me know. I'm going to be toying around with this more in 2023. The reality is that I have a lot of makeup and I don't have money to buy new makeup, so I might as well use my collection and keep playing in it. And definitely feel free to tag me on Instagram or elsewhere on the internet if there are palettes that you see released that you would like to see me dupe the vibes of. Anyway, thanks so much to my patrons, my channel members, for sticking around and hanging out during some rough times. I think I say that all the time, but that's how it's been. And thank you everybody who watched the video. Give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed. Share it out if you feel so inspired. And most importantly, take care of yourself better today than you did yesterday. Your brain lies to you. You are deserving of kindness and comfort and anything good that you can find for yourself. You are worth that. I will talk to y'all hopefully sooner than later. Bye, friends.